a wonderful kind of day to learn. Hi friends, it's Teresa. I just wanted to come and talk to you about some watercolor basics. A lot of you have come to me and you want to know how I learned all I learned. So I thought the easiest thing to do was just to teach you my knowledge. So all you're going to need for this lesson is to grab some watercolors. Any old set will do. They have some really affordable ones that are under $5 or around $5. I'll go ahead and link them below. And you're going to need a brush and some water. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about some wet on wet techniques, wet on dry techniques, and the importance of all of it. So let's just get started. So you're going to get your paint wet, and then with a clean and wet brush that just has water on it, you're going to go ahead and make a circle. Then it doesn't have to be perfect. Trust me. Then you're going to go ahead and dip your brush into that paint and drop it right into the middle. Look how that blooms. It's probably one of my favorite things about watercolor is you never know exactly how the color is gonna turn up. And so you just have to sort of let it go. And so it's really good for me and exploring my perfectionist side because I know that this isn't meant to be perfect. So the next technique we're going to talk about is called wet on dry. And you can see it is just a wet paintbrush with paint on it on a dry piece of paper. It's called wet on dry because the piece of paper is dry because we didn't do that little circle with the wet brush before. You can see that this is very technical and there's not a lot of wiggle room like there is with the wet on wet technique. It's really good for making lines, or I really like it when I'm making leaves for flowers. I'm going to show you what the line making process looks like on a wet on wet technique. While it is very beautiful and pretty, there's just some times where you just need a straight line. So I wanted to show you the difference there. The next thing that I want to show you is wet on wet technique, but instead of doing what I did before, I'm going to focus on putting the pigment around the borders. So what this is going to do is it's going to give you the look of the wet on wet technique, but it's going to give you kind of the definition that you're kind of looking for with the wet on dry technique. So now I'm just going to make a circle. I want to show you something towards the end of the video, but I want to make sure the paint is dry first. So that's what this is. The next thing I'm going to show you is either something that people try and achieve, or it happens and you get so utterly frustrated. It all depends on what kind of piece that you're working for. So right now we're just doing a wet on wet technique. I made a circle, I'm filling it with pigment, and then what I'm going to do is very close to it, there's still a little bit of color that's left. Oh, I'm just adding extra water here just to see what it looks like, because sometimes that's fun to do too. So right next, you can see that there's still a little bit of pigment left on my brush, and I'm making a circle super close. You can see that as soon as my brush touches that circle, the pigment from one circle travels to another. This is so magical and cool when you want it to happen, but when you're working on a piece and you don't want it to happen, it's so frustrating. So you just have to make sure that your piece is dry or work in sections, but we'll talk about that on a later lesson. So right here, I'm just showing you that it can be kind of hard to go over and cover up your mistakes with watercolor. We're going to go over that in another lesson as well. And then here I'm showing you that it can be difficult to fill in a circle with the wet on dry technique without having harsh lines. The way that I am covering that up is just doing a larger amount of pigment with a wet on dry technique. What I did below with the leaf was just trying to get rid of an extra little bit of water on my brush. I really like to make leaves, so you'll probably see me make them as like my default doodle. And then you can see there's one more to throw in for you. Okay, friends, so that pretty much covers all the different techniques that you need to know for watercolor and a little bit of tips and tricks when you're beginning to explore. So we have wet on wet, wet on dry. Here's another example of wet on dry with just a little bit less pigment. and filling in the whole circle. You can see how the wet on dry, there's a little less looseness that kind of watercolor is known for, but that it does have its place. So I can't wait to come back for next week and give you more tips and tricks. We're going to be talking about hue, and what hue is basically the lightness and darkness of one color. So it's going to be really fun, and I can't wait to see you. Bye.